United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Pray with me. Father, we gather here tonight in unusual circumstances in this uncertain time. I just pray that you will give wisdom and unity to those that have been charged with leading our community. And we pray this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
All right. Roll call. All council members are present and we do have a quorum. First item tonight is to approve the agenda. Everyone had a chance to review that. Do we have any additions or corrections to the agenda?
I move that we accept the agenda as presented. Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the agenda. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Agenda approved. Citizen comments. Hearing none, we'll move along to our consent agenda. That includes the approval of our March 16th and March 28th minutes and the appropriations ordinance 1169.
I move to accept the consent agenda and appropriations 1169.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded to approve our consent agenda as presented. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Consent agenda approved. On to items of business, first of which, updates on the COVID-19 pandemic and a review of city operations during said pandemic.
I'd like to invite Carrie Ulrich, our public health officer, to come and just give some updates and overview of where we're at today.
Hello, good evening. Just want to kind of recap a couple things just to show you how far we've come in their month. It was exactly 1 month ago today that Kansas got its first COVID case. And then so fast forward 30 days and today we have 845 cases and 25 deaths. So it's amazing what can happen in a month. So March 18th, our first Kiowa County resident was tested. Approximately 2 weeks later, 2 additional patients were tested at that time. Both came back negative, but seeing that they were clustering together kind of spurred us looking into the map and seeing how they were flowing along Highway 54. Thank you. And always the concern is that these are the cases that we know about. What about the cases that we don't know about? There was limited testing. Only so many tests were available at the time, so tests had to be done in a certain manner. Just in looking at balancing the needs of a whole, the community at a whole, and looking at the facts and kind of discussing the current and ongoing situation with our medical director, Dr. Kabar, we had made the decision to implement the emergency order for Kiowa County on March 27th, 2020. So March 28th, Saturday morning, I go into work and I spent all morning attempting to contact all the business owners in the county of who this would affect. Had really great conversations with them, just discussing how that would individually affect business owners. Kelly Estes shared his plans on how BTI as a whole, all of his stores are gonna tackle this challenge. And then about 30 minutes after I had wrapped that up, Governor Kelly releases her statewide plan, executive order that supersedes our local order. So we got to backtrack and so not much change between that. The only difference between our local order and Governor Kelly's executive order, the biggest one, is that our local order did address hotel, motel situations, things like that, because we are a travel through entity. We are, like I said, her order supersedes our local county order through April 19th. I do see that there is going to be an addendum coming to that very soon, just to clarify some of the language, as well as the possibility of extending some of the deadlines, particularly in regards to churches and things like soda fountains, self-serve soda fountains. they were addressed, but not in a clear enough format that gave health officers across the state enough clarification in order to shut it all down. So just needing to get some of the language put in there correctly to where everybody's on the same page. That's the goal, is that Kansas needs to all be on the same page, so we're doing the same thing, hopefully shut it down. So if that deadline is not extended for the statewide order, the Kiowa County order will resume until the end of April. So FEMA has been working to empty out the strategic national reserves of PPE. That would be personal protective equipment, masks, gowns, gloves, face shields, things like that. As you guys might have heard, that's at a bare minimum for the people who actually need it. Getting those supplies has been very, very scarce. So FEMA has been emptying out those reserves, and the Kansas National Guard has been working to distribute those reserves to health departments within the last week. And then also Ray Stegman, our emergency manager, has been working on getting supplies from multiple sources as well. And then whatever we get in, we distribute with the hospital, EMS, pharmacy, Haviland Care Center, Iroquois Center, Sheriff's Office, all first responders. Just as soon as we can get it out, we get it in, we share it with everybody who needs it. So that's kind of some of the things that we're working on. Just trying to make sure that the people who are on the front lines are protected as much as possible. So to date, we have tested approximately 7 people, and 2 are still pending at this time, and the rest have been negative, thankfully. So that is kind of an update of where we're at. And as you can see by the handout that I gave you, these are updated at 11 o'clock in the morning. We have added 2 additional counties to that I'm aware of as of tonight, so that are in our region down here. So I'll be interested to see what that map looks like in the morning, but that kind of gives you an idea of what the state is looking like, as well as a breakdown of the ages of the people who become ill. I know initially the reports were saying that it was basically older people, but as you can see, 7% of the population has been under the age of 9. So it's not just affecting those that are 65 and older, it really is affecting all ages. So we really are trying to take those steps to protect all of our community as a whole. So I'm just here to answer any questions you might have.
Any questions for Carrie before we maybe move on to the more city-focused part of this discussion? Thanks for all the long hours you guys are putting in. I know it's not been easy for you, but
Thank you.
hopefully the light is at the end of the tunnel and won't be too long before this is behind us.
Yes, definitely. Thank you.
Staying with the same item of business, just kind of discussion on any alterations we may want to make to city operations just to better protect our employees and citizens.
We've been closed since our special meeting on the 18th to the public here at City Hall, and I don't think that we've had any interruption as far as the public being able to pay their bills or have any opportunity to come in. We have processed a couple of like building permits and things like that, and dog tags, things like that, that people have come in, and we've been able to work with them. But I don't think we've seen any interruptions in being able to deal with things that have come up in being closed. The Big Well Museum has also been closed since that time. We've made some good use of that downtime to do some painting of all the stairs and railings and bathroom floors in there. We've never had a time to be closed like this since the building opened, so it's a good opportunity to do some of that upkeep. I would suggest that we continue with both of those facilities being closed, especially through the stay-at-home order that the governor and that the county has in place. One thing that we have not really discussed yet, and I don't know if we're to the point where council thinks that we want to take some measures as far as employees and how we operate day to day. As we've discussed before, our people don't deal with the public generally and what they're doing out and about. but all of our crew is together at Public Works generally during the day at different points and interacts with each other. And so if somebody were to get sick, the potential of everyone getting sick is pretty high. And should council, have this discussion and see where we're at, if you think we're to that point that we want to maybe take some measures to prevent that possible cross-contamination, if you will, amongst employees, or if you want to wait a little while and see how it progresses, maybe have a special meeting or revisit it at our next regularly scheduled meeting. But I've kind of put together an idea of what that could look like, how we would split into 2 teams, and those 2 teams would not have interaction with each other, and that would just prevent the possible spread. If somebody were to get sick, our whole crew would not be compromised. And so both administrative staff and the public works staff, what that might look like. So I would open that for discussion to see what the council's thinking at this point with what's going on with the COVID pandemic.
I don't think we're to that point yet. If they have a lot of interaction within the public works building down there, that can be remedied or limited. When you get to work in the morning, you punch the time clock, and if you know what you're supposed to be doing that day, you go do it. You don't sit in there for however long they sit in there. And if we get to this point, even if we have to split them up in 2 different shifts, what says on their day off they don't go somewhere and come back?
Right.
And still spread it. So I don't know that we're to that point just yet. It may come to that, but I don't know that there's other entities in town that are still working. So, the co-op, they're still at full staff going. And our guys are out and about every day. Most of them rent a pickup by themselves, unless they have a job that they all have to get together and work on. So I think right now we just need to kind of table that and wait and see where we're at.
Spring is here, and they're going to get, if they do not start their mowing or weed eating or whatever else, it will get behind in a fast hurry, and then we're looking at overtime for each one of our employees because we gave them time off during the day or during this time. And I agree with Mark. I don't think now is the time, because they can handle that. By not being there, they can be having assignments before they leave that night, so they know they can come in, get in a pickup, and go do the assignment that is there, and then Mick can run around, or Mike, or whoever can go and check and see what's going on.
Kind of what Pam was saying, if the department heads were very organized, and we're able to say, you're going to go out and mow tomorrow, and you're going to go, just the different areas where they could work
Separately.
Yeah, individually. This is your mower for the next couple weeks. This is the guy that's using this piece of equipment, and maybe make sure they're not making coffee and sitting around and bringing their own cups and just all the things that.
And they've been wiping things down and in the last week being more diligent about some of that and the cleaning and that interaction.
And just like what you guys have been doing here and what Caitlin's done at the Big Well, just taking the opportunity to do some of those things that maybe aren't a high priority at other times during the year, just to focus on that right now. So things are still getting done, people are still getting paid.
Yeah.
Mike, Chance, I've heard from you.
No, I think, we'll kind of keep things going as they are for now. I know some of those smaller steps, like co-op's taking, they're not even having people clock in. They don't want everybody to go to the same spot. So they're just texting in their clock in their timesheet, so.
That's what County Public Works is doing as well.
Yeah.
They have a clock-in spot right in they all meet right there.
But they don't have to manually clock
No, and we can discuss some of these things tomorrow of how to better separate I just wanted to kind of take your temperature and see what your thinking was at this point. 3 weeks when we last met was a long time ago, and a lot's changed. So just wanted to see kind of what you were thinking right now.
Have any employees voiced concerns to either of you?
Not that I'm aware of, and I've checked in several times to kind of see how everybody was feeling, and nobody was wanting to go home at that point. So
Okay.
I think hearing pretty strong consensus, like to keep all of our employees working, doing their jobs for this, but again, taking appropriate precautions, social distancing, and anything we can do to make sure they're not all same place, same time, let's go ahead and do that. But let's try to keep them working for now. Is that the consensus I'm hearing?
Well, and right now is, I know it's a bad timing, the timing is bad and all that, but we can get so far behind, we never get caught up,
yeah.
And I think until we get into a more severe situation, if it happens, then at that time we can address that. But I think we need to keep going with our operation right now, and there's plenty of jobs out there for them to go do where they could all go separate ways and do them.
Do we have the resources?
And I don't mean just get the pickup and go ride around town all day. No, I'm dead serious.
Yeah.
I'm dead serious about that.
Yeah, they've been doing a lot of jobs and independently, spraying weeds and things like that too. So yes.
Do we have the resources to be able to offer employees a mask, even if it's a homemade mask, or a bottle of hand sanitizer? Just so maybe each employee had access to that, so if they are...
Wanting to where it's available.
Yes.
Could we purchase hand sanitizer, towels, or spray or whatever and put in each vehicle or down there, whatever? Or have we already done that?
If you can find it in the store.
High demand right now.
Yeah.
Trade somebody a roll of toilet paper for some.
Do we need to provide that stuff anyway, since we're signing?
Yeah.
I mean,
We have a lot of cleaning supplies and things, but
Sure.
I'll work with Carrie on,
They have hand soap
if
down
we're
there.
requesting them to stay,
yeah.
Yeah,
I don't know how that fine line works as far as, we're being ordered to stay home, we're saying you come to work. do we
But
need
we're
to
considered as government employees
Right.
essential, so
He's got a point there. And there's a fine line there. What if somebody says, well, I don't want to come to work? Then what do we do there? Okay, if you have vacation or sick time and you wish to use it, burn it up. Go ahead.
there are some, with the federal bill that's been passed with FMLA leave, like for instance myself, my kids are home right now because school's out. If I wanted to, I could request leave and use FMLA leave to go and be home with them. And so there's different things that have been passed to allow if employees get sick, or if they are a caregiver for somebody that gets sick. There's several different, I don't have it in front of me to be able to say, but that they can take leave through that federal program that's been passed. So if somebody did want to leave, though, they would be able to use their own vacation and sick leave to do so.
And
Their own leave,
there's that
yeah.
fine line he's talking about. I mean, in your situation, as opposed to somebody that says, I don't believe I want to come to work anymore. Well, do you have a reason you need to stay home? Well, no, I just feel safer if I stay here. Then how do we address that?
I mean, I don't think we can deny that.
Well,
No,
as
but
mentioned,
right.
that was one of the provisions of one of the response acts that Congress undertook. An employee does have the right, if they're diagnosed or seeking diagnosis for COVID, there's 2 weeks paid leave. And that's a pretty broad definition.
I understand that, but if they just out of the blue say, you know what, I just don't feel safe being out, I'm not sick or nothing, I'd rather stay home.
I don't believe just that reasoning would be covered under the act. They have to be,
And that's what I'm saying, okay.
yeah.
Yeah.
If that person, if you have vacation.
Challenge that.
if
No,
that-
but if they just said, instead of saying, I don't feel safe, oh, I'm worried I might have it, so I'm gonna get tested, so I won't be in until I get tested, and, the turnaround on tests is,
But if they say, I don't want to come to work, I just feel safe staying at the house, then at that point there, I'm saying, if you have vacation or sick leave and you want to use it, feel free to use it.
And again, we probably want to get the opinion of our city attorney on the language of that bill before we know exactly how we want to respond to that.
Sure.
But my understanding of it is that would probably be outside.
But there's some gray matter in there that,
It's kind of vague, it
Yeah.
is. But that's just a bridge we will have to cross when we come to it. I'm hopeful that our employees will continue coming in, because again, their risk in their day-to-day activities, at least for most of our employees, is fairly low, I would say.
Well, maybe.
What's
Who knows what they do when they leave at 5 o'clock?
Right, I think it's really outside of the business hours,
Correct.
And that's for any essential.
And that's for anybody.
That's for anyone.
That's
for any of us in this
Yeah,
room.
right.
I mean,
So-
nobody knows where any of us have been. And you guys don't know what I did today,
We don't
right?
want to know, point.
That's true.
Don't tell us.
But I'm just saying, that's when they get off work,
Yeah.
you know, they could go to Quick Shop and get supper. Well, somebody from Wichita may have been in there, that may be a host. And now they got it, now they're gonna come back, so it's, I don't know, maybe that's paranoia, I don't know, but
that's the same thing with having a split crew. You don't know what they're gonna be or where they're gonna be on their day off, so
right.
you can't say, okay, if we're gonna give you Tuesday and Thursday off, you go to the house and you do not leave. We can't do that.
Well, that's the hope with the statewide stay-at-home orders. The expectation is, again, they're kind of voluntary in their enforcement, but hopefully people are paying attention to them and, staying at home unless they need to go out for one of the allowed purposes.
Right.
But
According to our region, nobody is, isn't that correct?
Correct, according to the statewide map, Iowa County got a big old F on our.
Staying at home.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Is
from-
that because we are rural and we have agriculture, like, you have to drive, like some people I know have gone to Pratt to get their essential supplies from Walmart. And then I just wondered about the agriculture community, like if some of that driving around.
I don't know, it's all based on the pings from your cell phone, so,
Right.
I mean, there's.
Does
probably-
cruising Saturday night count against,
I know.
like, is that?
If they have their phone with
Stay
them,
home
yes, it
for your
does.
car?
Sure.
Because it's when you leave the county,
Oh,
right, when
okay.
your phone pings when you leave the county.
I see, okay.
So, but it is the rural area here,
Mhm.
as a whole, did great as an F. So, I mean, I know that we're more.
I just think about the hospital and how many employees live out of Kiowa County that come to work every day here at the hospital alone, and that's one place. So I know that,
Well, the same with our sheriff's office and, I mean, our
Yeah.
county employees, and yeah, absolutely.
I will say on the call that Stacy emailed us all about on Friday, and I hopped on and listened to that. They were saying that the doubling rate for Kansas was every
3 days.
3 days, and at the time of the call, we were at 630, and so now we're 3 days out from that, and we're only at 8. So it didn't, I feel like that
It didn't quite double.
it didn't
but-
double, so maybe we're getting now closer to 4 days before it doubles, or 5 days, and they were
Right.
hoping it got to 8 to 10, so I
the
hope
other
that
thing is-
means that people are staying at home.
The other side of that coin is the testing side. We're not testing a lot of people just because there's a big testing bottleneck in Kansas. They mentioned that in that same call. I also listened to it, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, please. That's why you're
We
here.
will be seeing a change in that too, because it was just announced today that we are getting 15 machines from Abbott, which is a rapid testing machine. They're going to be distributed throughout the state of Kansas that will allow testing results in under 20 minutes. So the KDG hasn't announced where those are going to be, but they have said that they are going to be distributed throughout Kansas. So that is going to be a game changer as far as us getting results. Whereas now it can take up to 5 days to get results, and it's going to be 20 minutes. So that alone is going to change the algorithm for the numbers that we're going to see. So.
Any other discussion on this topic?
I think we leave things just the way they are right now, for temporary, to see what's going on.
Seems to be the consensus. Any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll move along to the next item on our agenda, which is ordinance 1093 regarding court costs.
For the next two agenda items, I'll turn it over to Christy, who's our court clerk, to talk about court.
So, if you've read your agenda memo, you'll notice that we haven't reviewed the court costs since 2014. And I can tell you from when we started the police department that those did not change from where they had been previously when we were working with the sheriff's office. The idea was that everyone would have the same numbers in their head as far as court costs, so when they were writing out the tickets, they weren't putting district court numbers on municipal court tickets. So we were following state guidelines before and matched the district court, but as soon as we made that transition to have our own department, those court costs were set by the council at 95 and they haven't changed. So just reviewing where the district court is at, currently they're at $108. And so it has been recommended based on our activity and future activity and expenses that we go ahead and re-examine maybe upping that to where the state's at. So the ordinance that's in front of you references a state statute that sets the court costs for the district court. And so if adopted, this ordinance would not require you to pass a resolution to update your court costs upon review. They would simply update whenever the state statute updates is amended. And so we would be consistent with what the sheriff's office is charging as far as court costs when they issue tickets as well. So that's what's recommended for ordinance 1093. Occasionally, you'll see that I put in there the amounts that we have to remit back to the state. Occasionally, that changes per case. It has not changed for probably 3 years. So out of that court cost, we would deduct, right now it's at $23.50 that I remit per case back to the state of Kansas, and then the other funds are used to cover additional administrative costs of the court.
Questions, counsel?
If we got this would save us having to review this every 2 or 3 years and try to decide where we want to go.
Yes, it would save you from having to review it, and it would save you from having to republish your ordinance.
The state's going to change it for us, and we'll.
Yes, because the way it's worded, it says KSA gives the number and amendments. So as it changes, our court costs would change as well.
Seems like it makes sense.
It does.
Yeah.
With that being said, I would make a motion we adopt ordinance 1093 regarding costs of the court.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve ordinance 1093. Any further discussion? Ordinance roll call vote. Little.
Yes.
Macbeth.
Yes.
Trumbull.
Yes.
Reeves.
Yes.
Kern.
Yes.
Ordinance approved. And another ordinance coming up.
Yeah, the second ordinance that the court had proposed was ordinance 1094. There is a section of the code at the beginning of the code book that's called general penalty. And basically, the parameters that are set in that section of the code are what the judge could assess to a defendant if they're found guilty of any code in our code book that doesn't have its own set of fines and fees. So we've had several situations over the years where we've had to use that code to assess the fine, and it's currently the minimum that the judge can charge someone is $500 plus court costs. So they're automatically, regardless of the severity of what they were doing, their minimum is going to be $595 as of right now. We've had some issues. I know that this was addressed a few years ago when we had some issues with dogs running around, because we had someone that had to be charged $595 for their dog being out. So we addressed that specifically, that dog code, but we didn't change the penalty within this general penalty at the beginning. So for instance, if someone were lighting off fireworks and it was to the point where Chief Webb decided he needed to write them a ticket to appear in court, and this did happen this last summer to a resident, they would automatically be charged a minimum of $600, basically. So if we were to do what this ordinance proposes, it would give the judge a broader range based on what's going on with the situation and what the offense is. They could still be charged $500. But if the offense doesn't warrant that, and the judge's, it would be at the judge's discretion. And so he could go as low as 50 plus court costs. It just gives them more leeway to assess accordingly. So.
Does this apply more to like what you state there as habitual violators?
There are some codes that have specific codes for habitual, or specific penalties for habitual. If you are declared a habitual violator within that code by its definitions, then some of those do have penalties above the general fees, or they have a different, maybe a different set of incarceration options or something like that. I looked through, I was kind of surprised at how many codes still do not have a specific penalty assessed to them. I knew there was a couple, but I didn't realize how many there were. Some of the larger code violations are specific as to what you would be charged. Some of the housing violations, pit bulls, that kind of thing, they have specific penalties that are already set for them. So this would just be the items that don't have anything specifically set.
Well, council, ordinance for your consideration basically just gives the municipal court more flexibility in assessing penalties for infractions in city code.
I want to make a motion that we approve ordinance number 1094.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve ordinance 1094, altering the general penalties for infractions in city code. Any further discussion? Ordinance roll call vote. Kern.
Yes.
Reeves.
Yes.
Trummel.
Yes.
Macbeth.
Yes.
Little.
Yes.
Ordinance passes. Right. Moving right along. Item of business number 4, resolution setting our trash and recycling rates for the next 10 years, given our contract with Nisley.
Yes, at the last meeting, you approved a 10-year contract with Nisley's for trash and recycling service. And so this resolution, 2020-02, will amend our city code, section 15516, that will reflect those rates for the next 10 years. It will go into effect January 1 of 2021 through 2030.
I had a question on
Uh-huh.
this. Is that, you know, on the commercial rates, it's got weekly at $14.50, and then nothing in service, end of work or whatever it is, in a
Every other
month.
week.
And then you go down to the second one, and then it's got, it isn't really $14.50 a week. Isn't that a month? We charge that for commercial?
That's for weekly collection. That's the monthly charge for weekly collection, if I'm understanding it correctly.
But I don't think we charge that. I think we only charge 14. I think we only, you know.
Are you on the commercial
Yes.
95-gallon cart trash service?
Well,
The $14.50?
yeah. See, it's got weekly and it's got $14.50.
Yes, that's the monthly charge for weekly pickup.
So once a week, they get it picked up for $14.50.
Yes, the same as
Boy,
residential.
that is confusing.
The same as the
'Cause some-
residential. I
yeah.
know. Think about staring at all these numbers in 3 different types of contracts, yeah.
You know, they really shouldn't. I'm going, well, that's not how they do it. Okay, got it. Sorry.
There's a lot of options.
Yeah, well.
How many times
and
you
I'm
get
going,
picked up?
Yeah.
Did have one question. Do those rates include our administrative fee? Because that's $1.50 per month, correct?
Yeah, but I don't think it is.
I'm thinking, no, they may not.
No, I think you're right. I think I made a mistake and did not add those in.
Because I remember $14.50 was the cost from Nisley, so
You are correct.
that being the case, do we want to maybe bring this back to another meeting?
Yep.
We got some time.
Yeah. That's why we do this 8 months in advance.
Just tell everybody to stop generating trash for a month until we
Yeah.
figure this thing out.
We got till the end of the year, right? Yes. Thank you.
So, yeah, we'll bring this back future meeting. Encourage you to take a close look at it, all council members, just in case you see something else. But we'll bring this back next meeting in April. Unless there are objections. Okay, so we'll postpone action on that item for now. Move on to our next item of business. Police Department report from Chief Rubb.
Good evening. Just want to give you guys an update on my activities for the police department. I am working full-time now, and then I'll be moving to town next week. Last couple months, been active. Between February and March, had a total of 170 calls for service. That does include traffic stops. Of those, 126 were traffic stops, and 74 did result in traffic citations being issued. 30 of those calls were dispatched by Kiowa County Communications, and then the remainder were either self-initiated by myself or were initiated directly from a citizen calling City Hall or coming up to me. In your packet, you guys have been provided with a breakdown of calls for service. Just kind of an idea of what's going on in town, as far as what types of calls I'm responding to, what types of traffic stops, what people are being stopped for, things like that. It does break down all the different violations, how many citations were issued for each, warnings, things like that. Also, I've purchased most of the equipment that I needed. A lot of that was just uniforms and officer supplies, duty gear, things like that. And then I applied for a grant from the United States Deputy Sheriff's Association, and we were granted that, and they provided us with a new preliminary breath test. The one that we had was very outdated. They also gave me a traffic vest and a first aid kit for the vehicle. Total, they provided us with about $800 worth of equipment for free. So that helps out, especially with the city budget. That's the equipment we didn't have to pay for. There will be a couple other grants that I will be applying for, and I've been working on those proposals as well. So hopefully we can continue that and get equipment for the city without having to pay for it ourselves. National Night Out is an event that I'm planning for August. Right now, with COVID-19, there's a little bit of up in the air on that as far as if it's going to be going or not. That's something that I'm actually looking at pushing back until October. We'll have more information on that as it comes available from that organization. Other activities besides just general patrol. In March, I did go to a lock-in event at the high school for some kids, interacted with that, just a lot of positive interaction, getting to know people in the community. And then I've also created a Facebook page for the police department that'll just provide updates on things that I'm out doing, things going on in the community, and just sharing important information. Anybody have any questions for me? I thank you for your time.
You've been very busy even though you're part-time.
Yeah. Yes, I have been.
What can we expect when you go full-time?
I expect a lot more. I'm keeping the workload very busy.
We appreciate what you've done so far at
Thank
this
you.
point.
I was glad to be a part of Greensburg, and I like it here, so.
Good.
Good year.
I've heard nothing but good things about what you're doing through the sheriff's office.
Appreciate that, and I've had a lot of feedback from the community as well, that they're glad to see me out being active, driving neighborhood streets, and then a lot of highway enforcement. So once the ward kind of gets back to a more normal state, we'll be able to resume a lot of that. Right now, kind of following the sheriff's office lead, and we are limiting the proactive amount of items we're doing.
Thank you for what you've done so far.
Thank you.
Moving along to agenda item number 6, considering waiving our utility late fees for our April 10th billing cycle.
On March 17th, the governor passed Executive Order 2005, which prevented utilities for disconnecting for non-payment, and we're still currently under that. I'm not sure We don't know when that is going to expire, but at this time, I've had a couple of different people approach me about, is there any assistance the city could maybe give as far as utilities? And one thing that the league, on the phone calls that we've had, has very strongly cautioned cities is that we are going to feel very strong economic impact of this event. And it may not come for several months, but for cities to be very cognizant that even though you want to help in your community in a variety of ways, at the same time, be very careful that you don't harm your budget in the future, that you won't have to raise taxes really high or anything like that. So that's one thing to keep in mind. However, is there something that we can do as a municipality right now to maybe help residents? And one thing that I think that we could do is to waive late fees for this billing cycle this month. They would still have a bill for whatever utilities they have used, but that late fee that's assessed on the 11th of the month just would not be added on. And that is a 10% charge that is added on to the bill. So we would still have basically whatever their usage was, we would still get that money for what that was, but just not have that late fee assessed. April of last year, we received $1,460 in penalties on utility bills, so it's not a huge amount. There might be more this month, just considering what has happened and people struggling and potentially having a hard time, but this might be a way that the city could offer some relief by not charging those late penalties this month. So just wanted to offer that for discussion.
As a former utility billing clerk, I have a really hard heart. And when it comes to penalizing the late fees and things, usually it's the same ones that are out there every month, month after month. They know when come the 10th, the 11th, they're going to be charged the 10%. Now, there is some that is, got caught in the trap. Let's put it that way. But then there's some that just don't pay until the 11th. Why? I have no clue. So I would be, and although, yes, you're right, it isn't that much money. $1,500 isn't that big a deal. But it's the after effect that if we don't charge it this time, are we going to charge it then another time, or are they going to expect it? Because that's how things work, is if we don't do it one time, well, you didn't do it in April, why are you doing it in May? So.
What is the monthly average on late fees? I know in the summertime it probably goes up a little bit because there's more usage.
I didn't have Selena run a full year report to see what those are. I just looked at April of last year, so we could kind of get an idea of what for this month it would be. I would say, as Pam said, it's probably the same users, but yes, depending on the time of year, that amount, that 10% is larger. I don't want to call this necessarily extra money, but it is, because the bill will still reflect the usage and what our costs are, what our bill from NISLES and KPP and everything will be, and for our water. But yes, some of it are the same people every month, but because of what's happened, maybe we will have some others that are maybe struggling, and this might be a way to provide a little bit of relief. With this executive order, we've tried to make it clear, I know Selena, we've had several calls from people really making it clear that you still have a bill to pay, because we don't want people to get into a big hole, and whenever this is over, have a hole to try to dig out of. And so we've really tried to make it clear that even though we can't disconnect you at this time, you still have a bill to pay, and there will become a time where that will be due. And that would probably be a discussion for the council to have in the future, depending on at what level, if it's a statewide, how long people will have to repay that, or if that will be something that they will leave to us locally to decide how long to give residents to get caught up before the disconnect can happen. So that's probably for a future discussion, because we don't know how long that will last, that order.
How do we educate them that this is only for the month of April billing?
I think we just keep saying that over and over. It's just for April.
Yeah, May 1,
Mm-hmm.
it's a whole new ballgame, depending on what transpires.
And there isn't a whole lot of them that do that, you know, there's a couple handfuls, but they're the chronic ones. Sometimes they forget, you know, and they put the bill aside and you're going, oh darn, I forgot to pay that.
I don't plan on paying mine if we do.
Well, it's cheaper in the summer, or cheaper in the winter.
I don't have a problem waiving it for April and reassessing in May. There are going to be some that do this every single time, and they get a give me, I guess, this time, but then there's going to be others that might have lost their jobs and they're really experiencing a tough time right now. And there might be some people that still have their jobs, but mentally they're just, you know, forgetting to pay something because everything's crazy,
We
so.
have some businesses in town that are closed up right now.
Right,
They have employees.
there are people that are not receiving a paycheck currently, so.
Unemployment's backed up, so.
It's a little thing that we can do, but,
I'd be interested in doing it a month at a time.
Yeah.
But not sitting out a long
That's
span.
all I'm suggesting
Or
at
a
this time.
For a month, not a month at a time, a month.
A month. yes.
There you go, thank
How
you.
about the month of April?
There you go, thank you.
Yes. Or,
Because of this time of year too was really a bad time of year because people send in, lower income people will send stuff in, go to get money back from the government. Now personally, I'd want to spend it other than pay my utility bill. But there was a lot of them, since we couldn't turn them off because of cold weather rule, then they just let it go for 3 months and then pay all the utility bill with their refund. You know, which, you know, it isn't good. I would still encourage Selena to, you know, you need to pay something. I know that you can't pay it all, but you really need to pay something because it's going to be really hard come,
Yes, and that's
come
what
May.
growing.
Yeah.
We've been encouraging people, and just end of last week, because typically we would do a letter
Yeah.
for those accounts that are behind before we did the disconnect. And because we're not doing shut-offs, there was no second notification. Well, working with Selena, typed up a letter to go ahead and send out to those delinquent accounts that, yes, we cannot shut you off at this time, but you still have a bill, and we really encourage you to pay what you can when you can. And if that's $10, $20 at a time, whatever,
That's a good
just
idea.
letting people know, because we want to try to protect our residents as well, that they don't have a big hole to come back
let me
from.
ask you this on the disconnect part of it. Okay, say the end of May, they lift this deal and it's over with. So then you have somebody that's been behind. So then in May, we go in and, sorry, we're going to now we can shut you off.
Well, I think that's will be a discussion to have further down the road when this order is lifted, and whether that'll be something that comes from the state that says utilities give 30 days or whatever, or if that's something that they will leave to the local level to decide how long. So that might be a decision for the governing body to have when this order is lifted, how long we give. And it will depend when it falls in our billing cycle and all of that as well, I think.
You still are going to give them 10 days in order to clear up, you know.
I
And she's
understand
doing everything that they're going to, you know, okay, you know, someday it's going to come,
Yeah.
you know.
I understand that.
so-
Yeah, you have to give them a grace period there to
Yes,
clean things up.
yes. You know, so if we even revert back to how your bills are and what they have to go through in order to get you turned off.
The
I
main,
think
the main
there's
thing
really
I'm
time.
seeing on this is, it's like what you said, this is not a waiver of your bill.
No,
In any way, shape,
no.
or form. So don't take it that way.
Do you need a motion?
I would say if we want to enact or waive the late fees for the April 10th billing, we would need a motion to that effect.
I'll make a motion to waive the utility late fees for April 10th billing cycle.
Awesome, second.
Flip a coin. It's been moved and seconded twice,
Third.
waiving our utility late fees for the April 10th billing cycle. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. And finally, our last item of business tonight is to convene as the Greensburg Land Bank. So we will adjourn or suspend the city council meeting and convene as the Greensburg Land Bank to consider the sale of the property at 302 West Wisconsin.
Included in your packet is that application for the property at 302 West Wisconsin. Mr. McLaughlin has indicated via email conversations after the application that he would intend to begin construction on a new home within the next 2 years. He was hoping closer to 1 year's time, but typically we ask that people start construction within that year, and he didn't think he would be quite ready to do that yet. He also requested that he would like to make payments on the purchase of the property. Typically for residential construction, the properties have been sold for $300. And so he would like to make a minimum of $100 a month. He said he could probably do more than that, but $100 a month payments on that property.
You know, that really scares me. If $300 is all he's gonna pay for the lot, how's he gonna build a house in 3 years? That isn't, you know, and he wants to make payments on the 300. You know,
In this 3-month period, in the process he's paying it up, do we still mow it and take care of it then?
oh, I'm sure.
I would say so probably, because that sale
Does he
would-
want to pay us to do
sale
that
would
until
not
he
be
gets paid off?
finalized. I'm sorry.
Does he want to pay the city to mow it till he gets paid off?
I'm sure
He'd
not.
spend more on that than he would on the lot.
That's right. The mowing,
More for that than for the lot.
Well, I'm not talking like a
typical mowing charge.
a blighted property.
Right.
But if we have to maintain it with all our other land bank, then in the process, we're waiting on him to make the final payment. Unless he would like to call one of our local lawn service people in town and have them mow it, then we'll quit worrying
Well,
about
and
it.
that's something council can request, is that he pays for it in full and not do a payment plan, but that is something he requested, so.
I just think that would be a lot cleaner for, title purposes. There's a clear, nope, it's his on this date. We're not waiting for payment to finish.
Yeah.
If he has to wait another few months before we can close the deal, my guess is the property's
We
still gonna
don't
be
have
there
a
for him.
Couldn't he save $100 a month at home until he can pay us?
Yeah, that would be my thought. I would think that, again, the property's still gonna be there in, July, so.
Is he wanting that property specifically for a reason, or did you just pick that one?
Likes it, yeah.
I don't know, maybe it's to save your money up.
He had a list of all the properties and was in town and drove around and looked at them.
To me, I would prefer that he save his money and that he can pay us
All at once.
in full. Until then, we'll keep taking care of it. Otherwise, if he pays us $100, then,
It gets real gray.
and we have to keep mowing it,
Yeah.
taking care of it. We appreciate his thought. Wanting-
Yeah, and, very happy that he's looking at building a house and interested in selling, but we prefer just kind of a clean break. It's ours till this date.
Yeah, we're
then it's
terrifically
his.
happy that
Yeah.
he's coming to town and
Yeah.
wants to move to town.
We're not
So-
in real estate business, so.
Can we maybe say it's reserved for him for he has 3 months? We're not
You know
gonna sell it to
what?
somebody
Here's another
else.
thought. If somebody calls and they're interested in it, he's got first, we'll contact
Yeah.
him.
We have
first.
had that happen in the past, and we have marked a property sale pending, when it had not been finalized yet, but was in the process, so.
You can do the same thing there.
We
too.
can do the same.
Yeah. He would have first shot at it if somebody else was
Yeah,
interested.
that way it's basically the same deal, it's just.
Yeah.
What if, though, the person that is interested says, okay, I got the $300 today, and we say, well, wait a minute, we have this earmarked for this guy, and we call him, and he says, oh yeah, I still want it, it might be 2 years before I can pay for it. How does that work?
I would suggest you give him a 3-month window to make this
Right.
payment, to save and make that
He's already made the
purchase.
statement that he'd pay $100 a month. So wait until July and then to sell.
Yeah. We're not in the finance business.
So do we need to make a motion that we,
I would say if we want to maybe reserve that property for a given period of time, we'd go ahead and do that. But other than that, if we're not, authorizing the sale at this time, what action would we actually need to take?
First come,
That's
first
true.
served, I think.
So.
I make the motion we decline his application.
Maybe with the stipulation that the property be paid in full rather than financed at $100 a
It's
month.
make it clear we're very open to sell,
Yeah.
just we prefer
Full payment,
cash up front, basically.
full payment.
Instead of canceling his application, can you postpone it or put it out in the future where we still got it, but I don't want to, I mean, that sounds so definite that go somewhere else.
But that's what we're doing though, right? I mean, we're declining his application.
Well, kind of, yeah.
I would say not necessarily, I mean, at the current time,
We're telling him no.
I'm telling him no for now, but please come back and see us when you have the $300.
That's what I said, we're declining his application, we would prefer full payment.
Sure.
Yeah.
And property would be,
I don't think we reserve property. I don't think that's
Yeah.
first come, first served. is how it
It's
should
kind of
be.
all or none.
Yeah. Either
But-
you want it or you don't.
I would say we would decline his we appreciate his application, but until he can pay for it in full,
Can't sell it to
we
him.
prefer it that way.
Thank you. How about
We have a
that?
motion.
Add a thank you at the end.
Yeah.
do you have a second?
Hmm?
There's a motion on the floor, do you have a second?
Motion on the floor to decline the sale.
So,
Do we have a second for that? Do we want to rephrase the
I'll second
motion?
that.
Okay. It's been moved and
But we need
seconded.
to let him know what the stipulations are and why.
With all due respect, add that at the beginning.
That just makes it okay.
Yeah.
Decline until such time he has the full sale amount.
If it was winter,
Yeah.
it'd be different.
Yeah.
So,
Following.
okay, been moved and seconded to decline the sale of that property until such time the full sale price could be paid to the city. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Any further business for the land bank? Hearing none, we will adjourn the land bank meeting and reconvene as the city council. We are done with our items of business and ready for city staff reports.
Due to the COVID-19 crisis and the state government kind of being shut down for a while, the application submission date for the KDOT cost share grant has been pushed back to May 18th. And so since we have a little extra time, I've been working with Lochner on reviewing the water and the sewer specs that we've talked about previously to make sure before we submit that application that it's really going to be what's going to work for us for that development there at the airport. Swimming pool operations, that's one question that has come up on the League of Kansas Municipalities phone calls over the last several weeks. Cities are starting to look at their swimming pool operations for the summer and asking the question, what do we do? Do we open or not? What's it gonna look like? And basically the answer has been, don't make a decision yet. Go ahead and prep your staff and your facilities like you are gonna open, with the possibility that it might be delayed or not happen, depending how this continues to progress. So we have been advertising for a pool manager for several weeks, have not had any applicants yet, and I think it's largely due to what's happening right now and being unknown. I did post it again on our Facebook page the other day for applicants for that and assistant manager and for lifeguards. We haven't had any lifeguard applications come in yet either. It's still a little early for those. We usually start to see them about now. But to go ahead and try to get those employees in place that we can open the pool, hopefully when that time comes. We have set the date for our annual spring cleanup day with Knisely's that will happen on Saturday, April 25th. We've actually had at least one or two residents call in and want to know if we've scheduled that yet, because I think some people are at home and doing some cleaning and want to get rid of stuff. So one thing that Knisely's did remind us is to make sure we don't have any loose piles of trash, that things are boxed or bagged and at the curb by 7 o'clock that morning, and they will come around and pick it up. and on our Facebook page, and then I'll also put it in the newsletter, will be the full list of things that can be picked up and things that won't, like hazardous materials, things like that. So it's a good opportunity for people to do some cleaning. The census is still going on. That has been pushed back when they will start sending people door to door to start those collections due to the COVID crisis. As of about 4 o'clock this afternoon in Greensburg, our response rate was 39.9%, and in Kiowa County, 36%, which is behind the overall Kansas response rate of 49.6%. So we keep encouraging people that may be having some downtime right now to get on the computer and take 5 or 10 minutes and go ahead and complete their census, and how important it is to our community and our county to make sure that they respond. But the census will start sending people out at some point when it's deemed safe to get those people out there in the public to collect responses. Our crews have been out spraying weeds on Main Street and cracks in the streets around. They're starting to green up. The mowers have been in the shop being serviced to get ready to get out there and start mowing for the spring and summer season. I mentioned earlier the painting at the Big Well. The last meeting, I'd given you an invitation for the Leadership League graduation that Caitlin and I have been participating in. That has been postponed. So pretty much everything on our calendars as far as those sorts of things have been postponed or canceled, as I'm sure all of you have experienced if you had meetings or plans. So I think that's all I have to report.
Questions for Stacy?
How is your policy manual coming along with the changes? Do you need some input on that, or do you, what?
At this time, I kind of tabled it considering the other stuff going on, but I've still been working on it and could probably have that for the next meeting.
Okay.
With this KDOT cost share deal concerning the airport, I wonder, how does that affect Sturgeon's and their plans?
As far as
They're
them getting
wanting to develop,
started,
yeah.
I did have an email from Tony the other day just kind of checking in, and I told him that things have been pushed back as far as our development, and I need to call him and follow up to see kind of what their timeline looks like. But I told him that we're still working on trying to get the infrastructure out there, because I know he talked about summer wanting to get started.
I mean, some of this is out of our control.
Yeah.
You know, and then we don't want to be making any big expenditures right now. So I was just curious about that.
Yeah, it's hard because, we want to get that grant funding, but just the way things are right now, being pushed back. And they haven't said, as far as the cost share grant, when the notification is expected, when we would know whether we got it or not and how much.
As far as the city crews spraying the weeds on Main Street, the cracks in town, that's perfect social distancing.
Yeah.
Fill me up and I'm out of here. I'll see you tonight.
And they're going to work more on the crack ceiling as well. They got more of that material in to work on that.
That's good. But I do notice that our weeds are starting to generate in the cracks.
They are.
Already.
Yeah.
So, that time of year, I'd be glad to get it picked up if I was one of them. And so, like I said, I'll see it quitting time. So.
What came of the fire extinguisher count and all that for trucks?
I know quite a few of the vehicles have them. I need to follow up with Mick. They were going to do an inventory and see how many we needed.
Still kind of dry, just in case they
Yeah.
start selling streets again.
And we did have the fire extinguisher inspector come and do our annual inspection last week too. So the ones we do have got checked last
Sure.
week.
The signs we put up at the playgrounds and stuff.
Yes.
Is that adequate? Okay.
Yes.
I got told that they were really small and hard to read, so.
The sign of the what, Chip?
The playground.
At the playgrounds
I thought we were going to tape all of the equipment off.
We kind of talked about it. I know there's different, cities have done different things, and I don't know, we don't have snow fence enough to do that, or caution tape or anything. And I talked with Carrie a little bit. I showed her the signs, and she thought that was sufficient. If the council wants to put more of a physical barrier, I will tell you, living right across from the park, on a typical nice day, you would see lots of kids, and Haley can probably attest to this as well. There's been nobody.
It's been real quiet over there. I've seen some families playing soccer together with, just their family, but not on the equipment.
I thought it was fine, but it got brought to my attention
I
that
didn't
they were
realize there
kind
was
of,
a sign over there even, but I did
Yeah.
notice that there hadn't been people over there.
it's just a standard, what, sheet of paper?
Yeah, it's
that
a
had-
sheet of paper.
Yeah.
I know that's what Pratt has, because I saw theirs on
Right.
Facebook.
I'm fine with it. I just was
I mean,
told
our
about it and I
capability-
was bringing it up, so.
Our printing capability is not real large. I could go up to legal or ledger size, but beyond that, that's as big as
Well,
we could
Matt has a
get.
fancy printer, yeah.
Yeah, if bigger, we've got plotters, so.
Okay.
So I haven't printed anything on our big color plotter for a while. I actually need to run something through just to make sure it doesn't get, that the ink wells don't get dry.
And then it'll just blow away.
Right.
Yeah.
It's a big sale at that point. Any other questions for city staff? Hearing none, we'll move on to governing body comments.
I'd just like to thank Mike for all that he's doing with Tanner up there at the theater. I just know that that's making a real big difference, not only in our community, but in others. And so as just a great citizen and council member, thank you.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thanks, Mike.
Yeah.
How many of you produced so far?
We've distributed over 350. We've got supplies to make over 2,000 total.
Nice. Any other governing body comments? Any other business to come before council tonight? Hearing none, meeting is adjourned. Thanks for your time, everybody.